Welcome to the Couple to Couple League PeakDay podcast, where we discuss fertility and natural family planning with our friends. I'm your host, Martha Haney. Today's guest is Dr. Holly Smith. Dr. Smith graduated from Indiana University School of Medicine and worked in family care offices around the Indianapolis area. As she practiced family medicine, her love for families grew and specific passions developed for women's health, fertility, infertility, and natural family planning. She's been leading the way in these areas in central Indiana. When Dr. Smith founded Fiat Family Medicine, a direct primary care practice, she was determined to bring back the importance of patient-doctor relationships to improve the overall health of the patient. Dr. Smith and her husband, Eric, are the parents of 6 living children and live in central Indiana. Thank you, Dr. Smith, for being on the PeakDay podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So while you were in med school, what was your training, if any, in reproductive health and fertility?
Yeah, not much. So I trained at the IU School of Medicine here locally, and a very academic institution. So there is a lot of research and a lot of things going on. But my training in the world of fertility, NFP, things like that, really boiled down to about a single slide in a slideshow in a lecture during the entire, third year or so, when we were going through our different rotations, maybe second year. But it was really reduced to one slide, maybe two, if I'm being generous.
Wow.
During the entire 4 years of medical school. So it was really something that I had to kind of seek out on my own.
Okay. So how did you find other avenues of education in fertility health?
I did a lot of in medical school because I was also getting married and starting to grow a family. There's a lot going on. I didn't have a ton of extra time necessarily to do any particular certifications or trainings or things like that. And I wasn't even really sure at that point that I wanted to go that direction, but just was doing a lot of reading on my own. That started really with my own faith journey and my husband and I's own journey into NFP and marriage and family planning and all the things. Really kind of started with my own journey, reading the catechism and reading some of the really beautiful documents that the Catholic Church has, John Paul II, Pope Paul VI, really just kind of exploring that world and starting to ask a lot of questions. So I would say in medical school, it was really more of just asking a lot of questions and kind of figuring out what it was that I knew I didn't want to do in practice. So I knew that in my personal life and in my own practice, I knew that contraception was not something that I was interested in participating in. And trying to learn to articulate that, especially to my colleagues and attendings and things like that, being able to express why that was important to me. And then, like I said, kind of trying to figure out what it was that I wanted to know. And I think the biggest questions for me kept coming back to the whys. So there's a lot of birth control for heavy periods, birth control for painful periods, all these different things. But I kept finding myself asking, okay, but why aren't we asking the question, why are these periods for these women so terrible? Where else in medicine would we, somebody comes in with a complaint of knee pain, we don't just offer them morphine for their knee pain. We try to figure out why their knee is hurting first, right? So this was just really baffling to me, why that was such a gap in healthcare for women. So that was really kind of my medical school journey. Into residency is really so I did my family medicine residency here locally at St. Vincent Hospital, an Ascension hospital system. And that was really where I was very blessed to be with some other residents and peers who were also Catholic, shared faith, and already had done some training in fertility
Okay.
awareness.
Oh.
And that was really, I think, for me, the first eye opener of
Mhm.
there's something else out there to offer women. Because I was really
Right.
kind of floundering initially with like, okay, well, I've told people I'm not going to prescribe contraceptives.
Right.
Okay, but what else is there?
Right.
And so learning that I had, even colleagues in my own residency program, and certainly some that were already out in practice that I could, develop a relationship with and learn from.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
that was huge. That was so exciting
Okay.
for me. So really, in
Right.
residency, it was when I really started to do that training,
Okay.
and a lot of that was still on my own because
Sure.
residency training is also crazy,
Right.
crazier probably than medical school. I had 3 kids during residency as well,
Oh
so
my. Yeah.
it was wild, but that was what really solidified my decision to use fertility awareness in practice. And so I got a lot of
Mhm.
practice with that in residency, but it wasn't until my first job out of residency that I actually pursued more formal training.
So
Yeah.
you were engaged and married and started having children during your schooling and
Yep.
residency.
Yep.
Okay. So
Yep.
when you were preparing for marriage, did natural family planning come up? Was that part of your marriage process at all?
Sort of. So I, I
Okay.
I will give I will give a lot of credit to the priest who did our marriage prep.
Mm.
He tried.
Ah,
he
yeah.
tried
Good.
to
Yeah.
encourage. At the time, this was in like 2010, 2011 that we were going through
Okay.
marriage prep and preparing.
Mm-hmm.
And the Archdiocese of Indianapolis did not have a requirement for natural family planning at that point
Okay.
for marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so we were not required to go through any particular training, but the
Sure.
priest did try to encourage us.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
was in a much different place
Yeah.
mindset in my life at that point, and
Right.
again was very interested in learning more and that sort of thing, but was very
Mm-hmm.
skeptical.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do, on the one hand, I wish that he had been able to be a little bit more articulate. On the other
Right.
hand, I don't think I was
Mm-hmm.
in a place that I would have listened anyways. So I
Mm-hmm.
really do think that the Lord had
Right.
to take me on my own journey,
Right.
to really understand and see the beauty of natural family planning, and to
Yeah.
really gain that confidence to use it ourselves.
Right. Well,
So it
he
was really a
planted the
journey that we
seed.
kind of had to
Yeah.
go on.
Yeah. Yeah. So you had several children maybe before you decided to practice it in your personal life?
Well, so when we got married, this was the hmm, beginning of my third year of medical school.
Oh.
Um, we knew that we were going to be open to life pretty early. We weren't sure what
Oh.
that was going to look like, how
Okay.
quickly would we get blessed with children, whatever. Um,
Sure.
very quickly, fortunately.
Yeah.
And so we got pregnant very quickly after we were
Great.
married, which was
Right.
beautiful. And so we had
Mm-hmm.
our oldest daughter
Mm-hmm.
just before fourth year of medical school. And that was where we kind of had that eye opening moment of like, okay, we've had one. This was really easy. Praise God. But like,
Yeah.
how
Uh-huh.
do we now effectively space? At the encouragement actually of a colleague of mine at the time, she was like, just go to couple league, go learn symptothermal. It'll be
Oh,
really easy for you.
okay.
Um,
Yeah.
and so that was our first. We used the couple to couple leagues symptothermal.
Sure.
Probably, that first year or so. Um, and again, it was one of those like, the Holy Spirit moves in beautiful ways. And
Yeah.
we felt called to be open to a second actually pretty quickly. And
Okay.
again, we're very fortunate that happened very quickly. So my oldest was just shy of a year old when we got pregnant with our second.
Okay.
And that was a little wild. And so then after we had our second, which was during my
Mhm.
intern year of residency,
Mm.
we definitely wanted to kind of buckle down and say like,
Okay.
okay, we are definitely going to have to space a little bit more than this,
Sure.
which again is something that I often tell patients. and everybody that I talk to. I mean, there's so many options out there with
Yes,
natural family planning and fertility awareness
absolutely.
now.
Right. Mhm.
So many options to make
Yeah,
it work for where you are in your season of life.
right.
I've had to change multiple times over the
Yes.
years for what
Mhm.
works.
Yes, yeah. Let's talk about maybe your motivation again and learning the different methods of
Yeah.
fertility tracking.
So, honestly, a lot of it has come down to trying to meet my patients where they are.
Mm,
And so I've had various patients over the years, I mean, tracking in all sorts of ways, some
mhm.
valid and some not as valid, maybe, or validated, I guess.
Okay.
But really trying to, yeah, trying to meet my patients where they are. So I've had
Mhm.
patients who are charting all sorts of, it might be the symptothermal method, it might be Creighton, it might be Fem, it might be
Right.
um, cycle beads or whatever. I've seen all kinds of different
I
things.
bet.
But yeah,
Right.
I think a lot of my motivation has just been being able to um, meet my patients where they are, understand
Mhm.
what it is that they're seeing, be able to speak that same language with them,
Right.
um,
Right.
and have that awareness of kind of where different people are coming from and what the
Mhm.
different options out
Mhm.
there are.
Right.
So
Right.
that's the primary, and being aware, so that when I have a patient who comes to me who's interested for whatever reason in
Mhm.
charting her cycles, I can listen to kind of what her preferences are and be able to steer her in the right direction of something that I
Right.
think might fit.
So you have a family practice,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
And do you have many opportunities to talk with young girls about their cycles and their and tracking?
Yes, I would say because my practice is so much smaller and a little bit a little bit more niche now.
Okay.
I'm not running a 2,000 patient panel. See
Mm,
new patients, different patients every day, like I was at some of my previous jobs.
sure.
I don't get as much opportunity for that as I would like
Yeah.
professionally. Although I do chair the NFP ministry at our parish, and
Oh,
continuing to try to find ways to work with like the youth groups there and things like that. Just so I'm like, guys,
okay.
you have this resource here at the parish. You're like,
Right.
I'm happy to come talk about this. So
Yeah.
um, I
Beautiful.
love to share that information with people and give talks and different things like that.
Mm.
My oldest daughter is now, she's almost 13. So that's another little
Oh,
opportunity that I get to kind
yeah.
of
Sure.
evangelize or educate through her and her friends, which is kind
Yeah.
of fun.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
Yeah, but it is interesting. Even the adult patients that I encounter in the office,
Mhm. Mhm.
many of them have young daughters, or daughters in
Right.
their early 20s or things like that. And so
Right.
it's amazing to me how often these things do come up, even if not directly.
So when somebody comes to you and they are using an app, does that information help you make diagnoses and treatments?
Absolutely,
Mm.
100%. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes. It's honestly, I tell women who aren't charting, you know, who come to me with complaints like, "Gosh, I wish you had been taught this." And most women
Right.
agree with that once they learn it.
Exactly.
I wish that you had been tracking your cycles this whole time,
Mm-hmm.
because
Right.
I could take a look at that very visually and
Yeah.
with probably 90+% certainty be able to tell you what it is that's going on, and then be
Right.
able to do that targeted evaluation and
Yeah.
really figure out
Yeah.
um, what all is going on. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, definitely visual. I think that's probably the thing that impresses most people about the app is they look at the app and they
Yes.
see, their temperature rise and they see those,
Yeah.
biomarkers and they're like, wow, this is how my body is supposed to be working.
Yes. So
Yeah.
many of the apps now, and I know the PeakDay app is very similar, have that ability to track like symptoms and things as well,
Yes.
which
Right.
even just from a family medicine perspective,
Mm-hmm.
a primary care perspective, helps me so much. Women who come in with complaints of, headaches or nausea or stomach
Mm.
issues or anxiety or things like that. And it's having them track those symptoms alongside their cycles,
Yes.
and those swings of hormones and things
Yeah.
can tell me so much about whether or not those things are related to their hormones.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're not,
Mm-hmm.
um, but
Mm-hmm.
sometimes they are. And then again, like that gives us great information for how to
Mm-hmm.
evaluate and manage that.
Where did you get the inspiration for fiat family medicine?
Yeah. I love to tell this story. So I'm an adult convert to the Catholic faith. And I would say even after I converted, I really, you still have conversions of heart that come later, right?
Okay.
And a couple of my biggest conversions of heart have happened with very real Marian experiences with them.
Okay.
The biggest one that I love to share with people is when we decided that we were okay. We were ready to accept baby number 3. This was during residency and my second year of residency. And again, got pregnant very easily, praise God. And maybe a little quicker than I really wanted, though. So I was a little upset initially. I was like, Lord, like, this was a little too fast,
No.
but we were practicing NFP. We knew what we were doing.
Right.
So we came to accept that third pregnancy kind of, towards the end of the first trimester. I was exhausted. I was sick,
Oh, yeah.
but I was starting
Yeah.
to get excited. And I had a friend of mine around 10 weeks pregnant. I had her ultrasound me at the end of a clinic day. And I
Mhm.
told her, I said, I just want to make sure everything's okay. Ha
Sure.
ha. I just want to make sure there's only one in there. Everything's okay. Right. And her jaw hits the floor. And when the probe hits my belly and she turns the screen and there are 2 babies, which
Oh
was
my
really funny because my
God.
husband and I, he comes from a huge family. I'm an only child. We had kind of settled on like 3 was a solid number. We were good with
Okay.
3. So this was
Right.
our third. We were really excited. Like this was going to be it. Um, and we were
Wow.
having twins,
Twins.
identical twin boys.
Oh my
And I just remember
gosh.
in that moment having this, I mean, there was an initial moment of a lot of emotions, but really just
Sure.
feeling this overwhelming sense of peace. And I
Oh.
remember hearing what I can only imagine was Mary's voice, telling me
Mm.
that, saying, Holly, you can't control it all and
Oh.
you don't have to.
Oh.
It was just kind of this invitation. I get emotional, but it was
Right.
just kind of
Me
this
too.
this invitation to
Oh.
trust in the Lord, right? Be not afraid.
Right.
Um,
Oh.
gosh, and so that really that obviously spoke volumes to me and
Sure.
released so much of the
Wow.
anxiety that I'd carried with me my whole life. Um,
Oh.
and
Okay.
then when I was um, in my previous job to this one, and we were discerning whether continuing down that traditional healthcare path was the right thing, or I was actually
Uh-huh.
considering leaving medicine altogether.
Oh.
Um, and I just had a very powerful experience in adoration and just in prayer
Yeah.
of saying like, Lord, like I abandon all of this to you. Um,
Oh.
let
Wow.
it be done to me according to your plans for me.
Right. Oh.
And so it was just very much that abandonment.
Mm.
So we,
Mhm.
when we were like trying to come up with names for it's, it's not like I've had this in my plans my whole life to open my own
Right.
practice. I actually
Oh.
never even dreamt or thought or desired to own my own practice.
Okay.
But
Wow.
as we were planning and trying to come up with names, I just kept coming back to fiat, fiat, fiat. Like that
Mm.
is,
Mm.
this is my abandonment to what God has been calling me to.
Oh
Um,
my.
so
Yeah.
that's kind of my, in a nutshell. There's
Beautiful.
lots of other pieces that have gone into that,
I'm
but
sure. Oh, I
yeah,
just got
thank you for
goosebumps,
asking.
Holly. That's beautiful. What do you tell those who lack trust in using natural family planning to plan their families? Like maybe
Yeah,
those who
yeah,
don't think it has any scientific basis or that they can trust it.
yeah. Well, I usually start by sharing with people where I was at the beginning of my journey and that I've been there
Mm-hmm.
too. And a lot of people are
Mm-hmm.
surprised to learn that, right? For somebody who's so passionate about it and I
Right.
would say very strong in my faith,
Mm-hmm.
to learn that I was once there too,
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
doubting, very
Hmm.
fearful, very
Sure.
anxious. Yeah, in the words of one of the greatest, like, be not afraid, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
simple, but um, I think what I ask, especially of my patients and my friends, and this comes up a lot in
Hmm.
personal conversation too,
Mm-hmm.
is really just to do what they can to learn it. Learn
Mm.
it, pray for an open heart, pray for an open mind.
Yeah.
Um, pray for that grace, right? Participate in the sacraments. If you're Catholic, and you have access to those sacraments, participate in those
Yeah.
sacraments. Those graces
Right.
are huge. They're
Yeah.
powerful. Even if you're not, right? Still pray, like, God, still pray for that trust. God
Right.
wants you there.
Mm.
And even if
Mm-mm.
you're not religious, right? I mean, just study it, learn it.
Yes.
I think for me, that was really what sold me. I'm a very intellectual, I'm a
Mm-hmm.
very feeling person too, but I'm very intellectual when it comes
Sure.
to reasoning through things.
Mm-hmm.
And very much that was the conversion piece for me with NFP, was
Mm-hmm.
understanding the nuts and bolts and being able to put that together with, oh, like, this actually does make sense. This makes
Yeah.
complete
Yeah.
physiologic sense.
Yes. There is science behind
There's
it.
and there's none of this gray wishy-washy stuff that everybody
Yeah.
leads you to think that there is. Like, it
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
it's very scientific.
Right.
So yeah,
Right.
encouraging people just to educate themselves and to
Mm-hmm.
pray for that
Right.
trust and that grace. Yeah.
Over the years, have you seen an increase interest in like natural fertility methods kind of in general?
Absolutely. Yes.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the most powerful things for me, and certainly was a powerful witness to those around me, was my first job out of residency was with IU Health, which is a local big secular organization.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I love that job. Honestly, they did a really beautiful job there of
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
supporting me. They actually financially paid for my Creighton Napper technology training, or a big chunk of it,
Wow.
allowed me that
Wow.
time off, allowed me to put that into practice in my office. So I was really, really grateful for
Wow.
that.
That's
Um,
beautiful.
but
Mm-hmm.
something that was very powerful, I didn't necessarily have patients in that practice who were seeking me out,
Mm-hmm.
knowing that I was Catholic, or knowing that I practiced NFP, or that I
Mm-hmm.
promoted that, or whatever.
Okay.
Um, so I had a lot of really beautiful conversations, and
Mm.
so many women suffering and struggling with
Mm.
the harms of contraception, or the side effects, or
Yeah.
again, just like, people, they don't want antibiotics and hormones in their beef that they buy at the store, right? Like, why would we be putting all these artificial hormones in us
In
for
our
all these other
bodies.
reasons?
Yeah.
The women are starting to wake up,
That's
and
good.
that was probably the most powerful
Mm-hmm.
place. Was we started seeing women who, they talk, and I was getting a lot of word of mouth referrals of people who were
Right.
just interested in an alternative. Like, gosh,
Yes.
this
Yeah.
doctor has something to offer me that's not the birth control pill. Like, she might be able to
Mm-hmm.
help me figure out why my periods are so crazy.
Right. Right.
I need to go see her. So a
Wonderful.
lot of it, yeah, was not necessarily hasn't necessarily been motivated by, morality or religion or
Mm-hmm.
things like
Mm-hmm.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Although that I would say that pendulum is also starting to swing. I think
Good.
people
Yeah.
are, their eyes and hearts are being more open to that beauty as
Yes.
well. But
Wonderful.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's definitely been an
Yeah.
increase.
You work with couples
Mhm,
who are, trying to get pregnant or,
mhm.
maybe want to postpone pregnancy. What about men in specifically? Are you seeing any fertility issues with men or maybe just an increased interest in, optimizing their fertility
Yes.
health?
Yes. Yeah, I love taking care of couples.
Yeah.
I think it's just a really fun dynamic, really beautiful, sacred space, especially when they're on a fertility journey. I would say the majority of what I do really is with the woman. But I always offer to bring the man in,
Okay.
to that. And oftentimes we have to, right? Especially if there's less obvious explanations for their trouble
Mm.
conceiving,
Mhm.
we may need
Mhm.
to do some
Sure.
testing
Yeah.
on the husband,
Yeah. Yeah.
and kind of figure that out. I would say that at least in my particular practice, and this may not be true everywhere, but usually it comes back to more of a female factor issue.
Mm-hmm.
But there's definitely, again, the men are always or almost always willing. They're a little more hesitant, but they're almost always
Mm-hmm.
willing to jump right in and do their part. They see
Okay.
the woman working hard, charting, doing all these things.
Right.
They're
Right.
always willing to step in and do their part to
Mhm.
optimize their health too. Yeah.
Okay. How does nutrition and lifestyle work into
Mm,
solutions for fertility
yes.
issues?
Yes. I see this very frequently where women, for example, may have changes in their cervical mucus quality.
Mm-hmm.
They may be having um, cycle irregularities or painful periods or things like that,
Mm-hmm.
where we've done the traditional hormonal evaluation,
Okay.
and a
Yeah.
lot of those things aren't necessarily adding up. And
Mm.
come to find out, we do some additional testing. Maybe there are some issues with processing blood sugar in
Mm.
their bodies.
Okay.
Maybe they are carrying a little bit more weight than they should be.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they should be, and a lot of times this is the case, eating cleaner.
Mm.
So much of our food is processed. And even when we think we're doing a good job or a decent job,
Mm-hmm.
and some women just need a stricter
Okay.
diet or a cleaner
Right.
diet than others. And so that
Right.
is something that
Right.
I do a lot with women and couples. And when it becomes something, I don't claim to be an expert. So when it becomes something that really requires a lot more diligence and handholding, I have a couple of really
Mm.
amazing health coaches in the community that I
Oh,
work with,
right. Right.
who help my patients
Okay.
make those changes. Yeah, very
Oh,
important, very
yeah.
overlooked. Well, and that's what I tell people too,
Yeah.
when they come in, especially with the complaint of infertility or trouble conceiving,
Mm.
I tell couples, number one, I don't believe in a diagnosis of infertility.
Mm.
So we're going to take that off the table right now. Infertility is a symptom. It's a
Mm.
symptom of
Very
some
good.
underlying problem or
Right.
problems, usually,
Uh-huh.
that is contributing to that natural reproductive process not being
Mhm.
able to happen the right way. So my goal and what I tell couples is to figure out what those problems are, get you as healthy as I can
Mhm.
so that you can receive the gift from God that a child is
Mhm.
when that timing is right. That
Mhm.
timing is not mine to decide. um,
Right.
and again, I have a lot of Christian couples that I work with. I have some who don't necessarily have a faith background. But
Mhm.
I find that everybody appreciates that approach, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
They understand that. They understand that they need to be healthy
Yeah.
to conceive.
How do
Yeah.
you utilize all of the knowledge that you have from the different fertility methods that you know about and are
Yeah.
certified in?
You know, I sort of have created a little bit of a mishmash, right, of the
Mm.
different the different methods and the different certification processes, have kind of their own medical protocols behind
Right.
them.
Right.
They're all very similar, I would argue.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
I have kind of tweaked them over the years to try to simplify it to some
Mhm.
degree. The medical systems that are out there, whether it's NAPR technology or FEM or neofertility, they all have their pros and cons, I guess.
Mhm.
Um, so I think that's a great value in being able to train in those different methods. Neofertility I haven't done yet. It's next on my list.
Mm. Mhm.
But being able to train in those different methods really does allow me to kind of
Yeah.
use the best of all the little worlds to pull that together for patients.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
and yeah, there's different protocols for different things, and there's a
Sure.
lot of conversation happening,
Mm.
even internationally. So there's a couple of groups that I'm in, where there's international email conversations going on about, hey, I've got this patient case here's the details. Gosh, what do you guys
Wow.
think? And somebody in
Okay.
Uganda, is like, hey, we've been doing this trial on this particular protocol, and here's the success we've
Oh,
been seeing with it. Or,
beautiful.
a person in Italy, provider in Italy will chime in,
Mhm.
hey, I've done this before with a patient and it was really
Mhm.
successful.
Right, right.
So just some really cool research and really good collaboration being done as
That's
well.
great.
Mhm.
Yeah. On the Fertility Science Institute, we have a
Mhm.
method matcher. So it's kind of like a
Oh,
quiz
yes.
that,
Yes.
they can look at the quiz, answer certain questions. Yes, I get up early in the morning. Yes, things are regular, or no, they're not irregular. Oh, I don't want to take my temperature. And it kind of matches them to
Yes.
a
Validated
fertility
fertility method.
tracking method.
Yes. Yes.
So we're, because ultimately we want women to, do what's right for them, what works for them, because,
Yes. Yes.
any method isn't going to be effective unless you're actually going to use it, right?
Yep.
So,
And use it well. Yes.
yeah, yeah, and with knowledge, get training, like you said, learn
Yes.
about it.
Yes.
Well, thank you very much, Dr.
Absolutely.
Smith, for being with us on the Peak Day podcast.
Thank you for having me. This was great.